Welcome to the IDP Hunter podcast on the RPO network. I'm your host, Steve Hungarter, the IDP Hunter. You guys know me as the IDP Hunter. I work for the Fantasy Tickets Pack. I work for the RPO network. I'm also an ECR ranker. Currently on ECR for Fantasy Pros. I didn't check, give me 1 sec. I'm the number 3 ranker still on Fantasy Pros for IDP. We got a good show for you tonight. We're going to talk offense. We're going to talk defense. My friend Rich is here. What's going on, Rich? How are you?
Good, Steve. Thank you so much for having me on, man. I don't get to talk a whole lot of IDP, man. I get some questions in our Discord, but I don't get to have a lot of fun conversations around IDP. So I'm looking forward to this. Really appreciate the invite, man.
Oh, no problem at all. For people that don't know this voice, we got Rich Maletto on the show. With the Fantasy Guru. You can find his work over at thefantasyguru.com. He's also over on Twitter at Fantasy Bosco. Rich, question for you. Am I pronouncing it right? Is it Maletto?
It is Maletto. Thank you very much for asking. And, hey, you did a better job than 90% of the people. You'd be surprised. In high school, I was a swimmer, and my name would be on the announcements quite a bit because, not to brag, but I won a lot. And it's amazing to me how my name would get announced every week after the meets and how it was pronounced differently every week. I was a Maletto, a Melito, a Matetto. The auto teacher loved the Matetto one because he was still trying to figure out where that came from. So appreciate it, though, Steve. Thank you.
We must be spirit animals in a sense because, my last name's Hungarter. It's not that hard to say, Hungarter. No. It's how it's pronounced. Right. But you don't know how many people murder that. Maybe it's 9 letters. It's too saying. I've seen Hangartner. I've seen Humgartner. When I played football in school, I was written up in it, and this is not no joke. Humfarter. Humfarter was written up, and I had to live that. So I probably shouldn't tell that on a podcast, but I'm probably going to get a couple, funny reviews. And then last but not least, Rich, like I said, I was in the Army, right? Every once in a while, they do these Army Achievement Medals. I got one for recognition. Stephen, Stephen, Hammermangartner. I am so frustrated, like doing analysis. If you're gonna give me a recognition award, at least
get my name right. Yeah, get my name right. You have it on file. What the hell? Come on.
I'm already instigating Rich. I'm already hyping him up here. Hey, yeah, we got a good show for you guys. Me and Rich, we met at the Kings Classic, right?
Yes, sir. Down in Canton, man.
I was on a show with Jorge Edwards, and he was describing the Kings Classic, and I was talking to Gary Davenport about this. I don't know if you remember Bruce Lee, The Game of Death. Enter the Dragon. It was Enter the Dragon. Yep. How all the best of the best would get it together in a tournament, and they would fight to the death like a blood sport. I was like, Jorge, that's like the best analogy ever. I guess for the millennials in the audience, I guess we can kind of like a modern day Mortal Kombat. You know what I mean? We're all the best.
That might be too old for them, man. I don't know if they know that. Maybe I'm being too hard.
How would you describe the Kings Classic for nobody that has never played it? Because it's by far one of the funner leagues.
So it is, and it's definitely the most challenging of all the leagues. I memean, first of all, we do 14 teams, right? So for people that aren't used to doing 14 teamers, look, it's not for the faint of heart. I'll tell you right now, you will not leave. You leave 10-team drafts, 12-team drafts. Oh, I love my team. You leave a 14-team draft, if you're going, oh, I love my team, you were not drafted with the right people or you're lying to yourself. Because we were just talking off air about our teams, and I feel like I'm at the bottom of the barrel. Steve's reassuring me based on scoring and everything else. I'm not. I look at my roster, and I just want to gag, So, you get these bigger leagues. I think you described it fairly well. It is a who's who, right? I mean, it's a big honor for me that I got the invite. I kind of lucked into it, I feel like. Right place, right time. But, look, the top 3 IDP rankers are all in that league, right? And this is the only IDP Kings Classic league. So let's not pretend this isn't the best of the best, right? I think of the movie Best of the Best, which I know I'm dating myself with that because I guarantee you almost nobody that movie.
Fun fact, you are my new best friend. I just binge watched the Best of the Best Part 1 and 2.
Oh, this is Cowboy!
Eric Roberts.
Cowboy!
We're a bunch of old dudes talking on the podcast, guys. Those on YouTube, welcome in. And Spotify, welcome in. But yeah, I got Rich Maletto on from the fantasy guru, and I promise you, at some point, we will talk fantasy to you.
Yeah, absolutely. But so it is. It's best of the best. It's an invite only. It's a big pride thing. And honestly, I feel honored to be named. I mean, look, we're in the room right next door to the Jeff Manses and the Howard Benders and the John Hansons and the guys that Bob Harris and Jet Ratcliffe, the guys that have kind of the base of the industry right now. And so, to be kind of involved with all those guys, it's a big honor in my opinion. And hat tip to Gary, right? I mean, Gary Davenport, IDP Sharks has been on the IDP thing. That is his thing. And look, he got Bob Lung to fire this up, and it's not an easy thing to get, especially with the format. Gary took care of the format. So, shout out to Gary Davenport. And look, it may be the most challenging league, Steve, but I got to tell you, sitting in that room with everybody there, it was fun. It was, I don't want to say intimidating because nobody was like rude or mean, but it was kind of cool being around some of these people where you see them in the rankings and how they're ranking players, and we're all talking and hamming it up, and we're all having a good time, and we're all just talking football. And I can't think of a better group of guys. That Kings Classic IDP group is bar none the best, man.
Life's always a learning lesson. We're always an extension of one another. Me and Gary were on Twitter late at night. We're night owls. And we always seem to get tagged in the same, like, who would you rather kind of questions. So we're always on there talking. And I told him the same thing you just said. I'm like, thank you for letting me be a part of this because, again, you have to go to Canton to be a part of the Kings Classic. You have to sit in a room and draft. I can't tell you the last time I live draft. And full confession, Rich, it was a 3-hour draft, right? I think it was like 3 hours and 10 minutes.
It's actually 4.
At 2.5, I had to go to the bathroom. I could have went to the bathroom. I didn't want to give anybody an edge. I held it. My prostate's going to pay the price one day, but I just didn't want to leave the room and miss any of the action. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those drafts. You have Jorge Edwards in there, Fancy Frames. You got Rich Maletto in there. You got IDP Iggy. You got John Norton, who's been doing it since the 90s. Gary Davenport, he runs the show. Master IDP. I'm trying to go around. Leo, who won the league last year and is quite. He does well in the rankings, like we just talked about. Yeah, he's number 1 2 years in a row. Yep.
I
play him this week.
Do you? He's tough, man. He's tough.
But yeah, if you go Bob Miller, Dynasty Pro, you got
Bob Miller. Room. Bob's a great guy. I love Bob.
Mm-hmm. You got a whole room of guys. Just again, everybody's going after each other, and that's what we love,
And no slouches. That's the hardest part, right? Nobody's a slouch. So
yeah, there's nobody you can beat up on or make a draft pick from, or right. I agree with you, Rich. Mm-hmm.
So. But I'm looking forward to this, Steve. Thank you so much for inviting me. I want to talk some football, bro. So I'm excited.
Okay, gotcha. I think what I'm going to do, we'll start it with quarterbacks, and I'll lead it with you if you want the quarterback or the offense or any offense you have in general. However you want to kind of shoot at it. I'm going to read a little bit from the fancy 6-pack article I did, the IDP waivers. So I guess we can do like offense, and I'll go to DL, and then you'll do some, and we'll go back and forth with it. So what you got, Rich?
As far as like some of my waiver picks, like what are we talking on offense here? I apologize if I missed
generally, stuff. I'm looking at studs in general. I like to go.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. I like to go. Me personally, I like to look at players that you could either trade for or maybe under that that 33%. Right? Maybe I can get them off waivers. It all depends.
Oh, you're talking about all this. You're talking about all the stuff I just wrote about. I have a over at fantasyguru.com. I have a buy, sell, cut article that posts on Tuesdays, and then Wednesdays I do a streaming article that's meant to be kind of bottom of the barrel. That worked out. Like we were talking off air last week's streamer article. Tank Bigsby was in it. Jalen Tolbert was in it. Broncos defense. That sort of thing. So you're talking my kind of jam. And honestly, you're probably going to laugh at this name. Because I know it's not one of your favorites, but Daniel Jones has been sneaky good lately, man. I mean, I understand the 10-point performance in week 4, but he was back pushing near 20 points again this week. He's not going anywhere. His demise, I think, was way overstated. So while I wouldn't call him a stud, I think being 11.5% owned per Fantasy Pros is way too low of an ownership considering the play. I mean, people are holding on to the Bo Nixes of the world, Jacoby Brissett's and things like that. I just see no need. I mean, Daniel Jones gives you the 30 to 40, floor for rushing points or yards for rushing. And honestly, he's a 250-yard passer, which, look, I love Justin Fields and what he's doing for the Steelers, but he has only done that once this year, So I feel like Jones is kind of under the radar. That's a guy to look at. A guy that I'm trading for, I hadn't even thought about that.
Daniel Jones, he seems like every year he's under radar, and he usually does have a good game or two, if not with his arm, but definitely with his legs. So Daniel Jones is a sneaky one. Honestly, I don't really have nothing for QB right now. I was thinking Caleb Williams. He's owned in 44% of leagues. I don't know how. Last week he threw 29 times, 304 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Defense crazy. Maybe he can get some opportunities. 7th highest offensive target rate. But that's the really only one I have. 5 touchdowns in 3 weeks. Caleb Williams. Generally, Rich, to me, I mean, I don't know. I'm a defensive guy. I'll ask you. I'm looking at through a defensive lens. Quarterback's kind of, if you don't have a quarterback by now and you're in a 12-14 league, what are you doing?
I agree with you to a point, but I was just talking to one of our members the other day. The last 3 or 4 years, once the bye weeks start hitting, I have been able to snag it. We didn't talk about this, but I'm assuming you feel the same way. The first 4 to 6 weeks of the seasons these days, after we shortened the whole offseason and everything, is more like preseason to me. And so I feel like after we get to that, then we can kind of divide the year in half. There's like this crescendo build up, and then we kind of have what we know, and you finish out the year. I have been able to pick up quarterbacks to ride the last half of the season on my way to playoff runs, championships, the whole deal off of waivers. People start carrying 2 at the beginning. Then we get to the bye weeks and they can't do it and they start dropping players. And so, and we talked about this. We like to spend our money early. So I'm always grinding the waiver wire 2 to 3 weeks ahead of time. I'm grabbing the guy that's on bye that everyone's thinking is going to slip through. No, not with me. I'll grab him on bye and throw him as my second QB on my bench, knowing that next week I'm going to drop my other QB that's not hacking it, and I'm going to ride this guy the rest of the year or until something better comes along that I can stream with, right? Personally, I'm okay buying Sam Darnold right now. It was hard to buy him when he was coming off the 3 good games. The reason I like Sam Darnold, Steve, the defense and the offensive line and the receiving core. Darnold doesn't have to do much. He just has to not suck. Honestly, that's really what it comes down to. They're giving him protection. So honestly, I've been targeting Darnold in a lot of places, man.
And I'm sure you can get him on the cheap right now too. But when people start, what I like about, the first couple weeks this season, yes, it's a bit of skill, but it's also a bit of luck. But once you start getting to week 5, 6, 7, 8, we have data to kind of compound this with. I'm going to transition real quick. I'm going to throw some DLs at you, okay? The guys that are chasing the quarterbacks. Okay, I got a couple guys here. And I don't know why, but people are kind of sleeping on this name. I'm going to give you a name. He's owned in 38% of leagues. I'll give you 3, Rich. The first one is Andrew Van Ginkel, okay?
How is he not owned everywhere?
I don't understand it. See, me and you are numbers guys, so we're going to get along just fine, right? Own 38% of leagues. Most of us playing 1, 2, 3 type scoring, everybody knows the top 5 linebackers, right? Spillane. Who else is number 5 this year? You got guys Edwards. Like Fred Warner. Yep. But people don't realize Van Ginkel's number 5. You can play him as a DL or an LB. The guy is just killing it right now, and I don't understand how the heck he is still not owned. I've had huge production out of him, and here's another guy I'll give you, owned in 8% of leagues. The guy's name is Gervon Dexter of the Bears. Okay. I don't know if you know who Gervon Dexter is. Traditionally, he profiles as a run defender. He's been a strong PFF run defender. Doesn't usually historically get a lot of pass rush plays, but he's a superior run defender. But that changed this year. He's getting, out of the last 4 out of 5 games, he's gotten over 50% of snaps. In the last 4 out of 5 games, he's had 4 sacks in the last 5 games. Excuse me. He's a great start, especially if you're in one of them MFL DT required leagues. You can get yourself a Gervon Dexter right now. You can get yourself a similar type player. This guy's owned in 14% of leagues. I don't know if you're familiar with Derek Hall of the Seahawks. Derek Hall is on a tear right now. He has 8 tackles, 3 sacks, forced fumble last 2 games. He's gone from 40% of snaps to 66% of snaps. And I don't know, Rich, how well you're familiar with the IDP side of it. 60% or higher is usually that sweet spot. It's not too much. Spot. Yeah, it's not too much time. You're not burning the guy out. It's not a little bit of time. 60% is usually what I'm looking for. But he's at that 66% snap count recent weeks. Namely, he's on a Seahawk defense that's in transition. He's a second-round draft pick. He was drafted in 2023. Ooh. Pair him with Mase, second-round draft pick. They both have capital 2022. I see those guys in Dynasty as being a young, hot tandem for the next couple of years with the Seahawks. There's a guy, Nwosu, there that people are still kind of high on. I think he was my last pick in the Kings Classic. Nwosu's part of the old administration, the old regime. Sure. I don't see him having that huge of a part. I see Hall in the next couple of weeks with some good opportunities. So if you're in a league, and me and Rich kind of do the same thing, we get our offensive guys in place. We kind of run a skeleton crew on defense. You can probably pick up a Derek Hall, kind of put him in your taxi stash right now and play him when you see the potential. But right now he is humming. He is moving forward. But those are my DLs. Any thoughts, Rich?
One on Van Ginkel. I'm shocked by that because if you watch the Dolphins at all last year, Van Ginkel was making a name. In fact, I got him in a bunch of leagues because of how well he was playing, and he had a role. Mm-hmm. He had a role because of injuries in front of him. When I saw Brian Flores take him, I had debates last year on this. It's not an IDP, but when Brian Flores took over for the Vikings, I said, look, this is a massively improved defense. Well, I mean, there's only so much you can do on paper. It's this. I said, look, I think this is at the very least, top 20. I won't be shocked if they're mid-pack. Where did they finish last year? 15th after the year before being 31st. Now this year, that defense is closer to the top 5. Van Ginkel fits Flores' system. Flores, give someone like Flores or Wayne Phillips, they're going to get the defense turning around that first year. Give them year 2 where they can start to get the players they want. Now you're going to start to cook with some fire. Give them a third year and look out because these guys are going to target players that just because they're, Steve and I say, look, they profile as a great pass rusher. They profile as a great run stuffer. Flores and Phillips and Dick LeBeau going back a long time. Ray Rhodes did this as well. They know what they need out of players, and they get them. And once you have them there for a couple of years, they get a defense that plays fast and well. And Van Ginkel's perfect. So I don't know how he's not owned. I tell you what, I wrote down Dexter and Hall's names. I wrote them down because what you're preaching to me is exactly what I want to look for. And as I told you off air, I've been kind of overwhelmed. So I've been slacking on some of my own personal leagues. I've got a couple of deep dynasty leagues like Kings Classic where we start 11 on defense. I'm going to go hunting. I don't know if those guys are out there, but I hope I can go hunting before other people hear the podcast because I'm going hunting for them.
People are afraid of DTs that are 3 tech, 5 tech.
I like 3 technique.
Me too. Me too. 0 tech, now if you're a nose guard, whatever, okay, I do understand your reservations, but there's nothing wrong with a 3 or 5, especially the way the modern day NFL plays. I mean, they kind of gobble up them tackles because that's where the run plays are going into. So yeah, those guys there, especially if you're deep enough, you can play those guys, and I'd feel more, especially during the bye weeks that we're in right now. You know what I mean?
Well, I'll tell you what, a perfect example, Derek Brown. He was supposedly 0 technique nose tackle, and yeah, to your point, like we talked about off air with the whole. Man, he's, slow IDP, the age thing. My gosh, Derek Brown turned into an absolute stud for me and the Carolina Panthers.
He was a monster. He was a monster.
Which
he had all and it sucks that he got hurt this year.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, is that a bummer?
Rich, who do you got on the offensive side? I got your article up for the audience on YouTube. I can see our screens. Please check out my IDP waiver article in 6-pack. Check out Rich's stuff as well over at the Guru. Who you buying? Who you selling? Who you cutting? What do you have as far as your? What are you going to go next? RB, wide receiver? What you thinking?
Yeah, so usually just the list, I go quarterback, running back, receiver. I give a couple at each position.
Gotcha.
Anthony Richardson was another buy on the quarterbacks. Why? Because I think you can buy him cheap. The whole point of this article is stocks. Buy low, sell high. So last week I had Sam Darnold as a sell. Why? Because he was playing QB1 level, and if you got him for free and someone's desperate for quarterback, you probably could have gotten a return. Now he came back to earth, and people are panicky on him. So I'm willing to buy because I think the cost is right. I think he's a QB2 with QB1 ceiling some weeks. So I have no problem buying him if I'm struggling at quarterback. Devon Achane, who you see pictured here, he's another buy. People seem to forget that 5 weeks ago, the guy got like 29 carries, right? I understand it was a mess, and I understand the offense has been a mess. But we're getting the usage from Achane that all of us would like, we think we'll get it, but we don't know that we'll get it. And now, because the line and Tua's not there, people are bailing on the Dolphins. I'm taking questions all over the place about get rid of Tyreek Hill and get rid of Achane. Don't do that. Don't sell low. Buy low, sell high. Like it's a common challenge, right? So I have no problem buying Achane right now because I think Tua comes back in 2 weeks, maybe 3, and I think we're going to see a big bounce back. So I'd like to see.
You heard what Rich said: buy on the low, sell on the high. But yet owners seem to do it backwards. They panic.
They do.
They tap on the trade. I don't even look at trade blocks anymore. Like I used to get excited. Let's see what's out there. It's just your trash. You know, I don't understand. Like the whole point of dynasty is you're running a dynasty league. You're trying to see. It's about momentum. And yeah, I don't know why you'd want to get rid of a guy, of that caliber. I don't know. But good point, Rich.
Breece Hall's another one, and I had the same problem. People are like, "Well, I want to move on from Breece Hall." Don't, not now. Last week I was being asked about DeAndre Swift. No, don't do that now. If you want to buy these guys, I get it. Okay, I'm a little torn on Travis Etienne. He didn't make the article because I'm still looking into it between the shoulder injuries. I thought Tank Bigsby was going to be this 50-50 split last year. Obviously, that bit me, Now, again, as we talked off air, I've got to be more patient, Steve, because I'm about a year ahead to 6 months ahead on some of this stuff, and I've got to watch it, right? But I'm all about buying on the low side. I don't want to. The selling part is where it's most difficult, and I think the reason people have a tough time with this concept, Steve, is nobody wants to sell high. The guy's performing for me. I don't want to sell him now. Well, that's your opportunity to sell. Is DeAndre Swift going to continue to get 20 points a week? I don't think so, Steve. I think Roschon Johnson's going to get some work coming up here. I think this is a great time to sell DeAndre Swift. I don't think you'll get a better return on investment because people are like, "Oh, the first 3 weeks that was a mirage. We're good. I'll gladly take them." But to your point, everybody does it backwards, Steve, and it's unfortunate because I'm not a big trader anyway. I prefer to grind. The reason I don't like to trade, I respect you, Steve. We may not agree how to see Achane, right? Now I have to convince you, somebody that I like and follow their stuff and agree with their takes, I've got to convince you to see it my way. Man, that's an awful lot of work and time.
I'm a trader, but I don't like to leave any meat on the bone. So if I think this player has a little juice left, I'll give him to you, or vice versa. But see, I believe, and I'm showing my age here. Dale Carnegie wrote a book, How to Make Friends and Influence
Carnegie.
People. Right. I can do a mutual trade with you. So if you have a guy in your bench, Achane, and I have a guy in my bench, hey, let's make a move together. Let's coexist. Your team can get good. My team can get good. We can raise all ships. It just seems like lately, dynasty owners, they just want to try to grease you. And they get there's some guy, some 350-pound guy in his living room eating potato chips. He's on the internet, Rich, and he's trying to see if he can get one of us. That's not what trading is. You know what I mean? Trading is about building that team like I guess in NASCAR, to your point, right? You're building your sports car. You're building your car to the best of the possible level. And I get excited if I trade with you and you get over, you get good. That's what it's supposed to be. You get good, I get good. I'm a big.
Why is that, Steve? Dale Carnegie's a sales guy, so obviously, as a sales guy, as a profession, I've read Carnegie. I've been to some of the classes and whatnot. I posted this in our Discord. One, don't ask me who won a trade because you're trading for the wrong week.
I hate that.
I will not answer that question. I will not answer that question. You tell me what your team is and tell me who you got, and I'll tell you if you made your team better. I'm fine with that. But if your goal is to win the trade, I want no part of that deal. I want to start seeing questions where it's a win-win. As I go into a customer, I am not looking to grease them or fleece them. I am looking to make a profit by helping them. I want to fix a need or offer a solution to a challenge. So I'm with you. If you're deep at receiver and I'm deep at running back, why are we not having a discussion? Because I need the receiver, you need the running back, and we can't get it. We can't make it happen because I have to feel like I won the trade. Like I struggle with that, Steve. It drives me nuts.
There's a passage in the book to the point that Rich is making. It's called "Give a Dog a Good Name." Okay, like I'm going to give you this player. You know, it may not be the shiniest toy in the tool chest anymore, but it's going to get you through the bye weeks. In return, maybe you give me that shiny linebacker with potential. He just maybe hasn't peaked yet. You know, again, your team's going one way, my team's going another. You know, but yeah, people don't tend to look at the long distance, the forecasting. That's what's interesting about your article, the buy, sell, cut, because it's a constantly moving economy. And look no different than the offseason, how we buy and sell and we strategize these players. Big fan of yours, Rich. I can say most of your articles that I've read, not most, all of your articles you read, I don't think you've had a bust this year. You don't have any regrets on any players, do you?
You know what? It's interesting. Last year, I did. Last year, there was a couple that really irked me. Knock on wood. I have been pleasantly surprised. Like I told you, I've almost forgotten about my leagues. And so I'm expecting to go in there and check scores and records and be like, I'm getting blown out of the water. And instead I'm going in there and I'm like, wow, week 1, I went 12-3. Don't usually do that. Usually I start slow. And I'm like, well, week 2 will be a downer. Week 2 came and went. All right. I went 11-4. So in all fairness, this week I haven't had a whole lot of major busts. I've been lower on guys after I moved him that I kind of regretted, you know, like the Jaden Daniels example. I had him as number 1 coming out. And then after the draft and kind of monkeying around, I moved him to 3.
Did you?
I will say, I tell you what, I will give you 2 names I was really off on that I regret. I had Caleb Williams kind of as a bust. I don't believe that anymore. I think Caleb is going to be fine. I'm actually impressed with his progression, his maturity. So shame on me for that one. Egg on the face. I know everybody was on Caleb Williams. That was one guy that I was kind of off on. So I'll eat crow on that. And honestly, A-Chain, after what we saw the first 2 weeks, I really expected more of a 50-50 split. Now, I maintain the Dolphins won A-Chain right split. That's really what they want. But as you and I talked about, some of the, especially on the defense side, we're seeing rookies take longer to develop. We're seeing that with running backs. 5 years, 10 years ago, Steve, you and I would draft rookie running backs in the 10th, 11th, 12th round, knowing that 1 or 2 of those running backs that we drafted were going to be major factors within the first month of the season. Now, when we draft those same backs with the same potential, we have to understand we may not see them until midseason.
And then you look at the team's disregard of the linebackers and the running backs, like they just kind of throw those guys out to the wind.
They're underwear. They're used underwear, man. That's what they are. It's a shame. I don't know another way to put it, right? Because it's, yep, you worked for now. I don't need you, so I'm just going to throw you away type of thing, right?
Yeah. But, you know, the reason I bring that up about bust, right? I kind of live here. You know, I kind of live in the off season. I can honestly say when we went into the Kings Classic, I was already going 120 miles an hour because I kind of knew where the players profiled or where they kind of hit for IDP, right? I have one regret. I have one, maybe 1 or 2, but I definitely had one bust that I thought was going to do well. Ironically enough, Rich, I'm about to read the linebackers to you. I'm going to give you 3 linebackers. This is my redemption. He's in here. My bust is in here. So I'm going to make a rebuttal to you in a second here, okay? I'm going to read off my other article. This one here is on the RPO network. If you guys are interested, check out the RPO network. This is the every down linebacker. This is a little bit of that article. It's a bit of an insane article. I take every linebacker, hence every down linebacker. I look at the snaps. I look at the tackles. I look at the efficiency. And then I kind of put my little talking points and my rationale. It's a fun article to write, Rich. It really is. But it's kind of like my takes, what I think's about to happen, what I see. what those numbers tell me, because some players are going up, some players are going down. It's just a fun one to write every week. You know what I mean? So let me start with this every down linebacker. I'm going to give you 3 players observations. And you know what? Based on their roster percentage, you can probably get them in a lot of places. That's what Rich likes to hear. Rich came on to just see what I got to say, right? So the first one I'm going to talk about, he plays for the Panthers. His name is Trevon Wallace. He's a rookie, 28% owned in leagues. We all know Shaq Thompson's down for the year. He's out for the season. Okay. Josie Jewell, he's out for at least another game or so. Okay. We were expecting big things out of Trevon Wallace. He set a record in when he was in college. He won it's the highest jump. And he's a 240-pound guy for the state of Kentucky. He was in the top 3 of the combine of every major statistical combine category for linebackers. So we kind of already knew the league was sleeping on this guy. We were expecting good things last week. Well, he went off. Wallace played 100% snaps. He played all 74 snaps. He produced 15 tackles. I'm expecting him to be an every down linebacker the rest of the way moving forward. He actually got to use the green dot, so he was the one calling all the shots here. Now, I'm not quite sure if Jewell's going to get the green dot next week. That's something we got to analyze. But moving forward, if you're in one of these leagues, again, he is owned in less than 1/3 of leagues. Like, you can pick this guy up right now, put him in, start him as a set roster, set him and forget him. I'm going to go on to my second player here. The Cowboys got a guy, DeMarvion Overshown. He's also owned in 28% of leagues. This year, when we look at Mike Zimmer's defense, Mike Zimmer's been in the league a long time, right? He runs this thing. His defenses are pretty predictable. He has the linebackers kind of close to the line of scrimmage, like to fake a blitz, because he's trying to throw off the pass block, the pass offense. And then they sometimes go into coverage. They sometimes do a couple different things. That's just the scheme he runs. Well, we didn't quite know the way the linebackers were going to pan out. We knew Kendricks was going to be the guy in the middle, the 100% guy. He's been an all-pro in this defense before. But we had a guy, Damone Clark, there, and he was sometimes getting LB2 duties. Sometimes Overshown was. We weren't sure who was going to be the weak side and who was going to play the strong. Last week, Overshown finally won this thing. He finally did it very convincingly. Overshown won the LB2 battle. He produced 100% of snaps. He went in, he kicked butt, he took names. He got 8 total tackles, 6 of them solos. If you play in leagues like me with 1, 2, 3 scoring, what's the 2 points right there? Solo tackles. This is the kind of guy I want. That's 12 points right there. 8 total tackles, 6 solos, 1 pass defense. He didn't leave anything on the box line, okay? And his ability, when you watch film, and I don't know if you watch tape like I do, he actually called every single play correctly. So I'm expecting him to be a hot pickup this week. So, if you guys have the opportunity to get Overshown or Wallace, please get him now while you still can. I have one more guy in this vein, and this one here I'm going to have to explain my rationale, because everybody had KJ Britt this year. Everybody had KJ Britt as their darling about to break out. And I was a little hesitant. And we do this, Rich. They do this on the offense. They raise the next Messiah, right? He parts the Red Sea, right? And they keep moving him up. And in order for me to stay competitive in my ranks, I got to move him up too. I was okay with him as a flex. But by the time draft season started, people had KJ Britt as like their LB2, LB1. PFF didn't do anybody favors. They had him as like the strongest run blocker on the team, yada, yada. Well, guess what? What is it called? Paralysis by analysis. I forget the terminology.
Paralysis by overanalysis.
Yeah, and that's what happened with KJ Britt. We all forgot, because we wanted him to be somebody. We all forgot the guy can't cover to save his life. He can't. He cannot cover to save his life.
That was the not coming out even.
Yeah. So we've seen a lot of Dennis. Dennis was picking up a lot of snaps, a lot of goal line, a lot of playmaking ability. Well, guess what? Like things do, things always even themselves out. And that's a good point too, Rich. And IDP, You got to read the tea leaves. You got to watch this stuff. Just when you think you have it, by week 5 or 6, that's why I'm saying don't panic, especially that Kings Classic. By 5 or 6, the 5 or 6 weeks in, these players get hurt. And if you're not paying attention to snap count and situation play, it all changes. So we went from praising Britt to downing Britt. Now we're about to praise him again because guess what happened? Dennis got hurt. They don't have another LB2. He went back to playing his usual 93% of snaps, just like last year. Now, granted, you can play devil's advocate with this advice too. You can be like, he got a lot. He got so much Kirk Cousins was targeting him. Kirk Cousins was peppering this guy. Well, guess what? What happens when they catch pass on you? You get the cleanup.
Still get a tackle. I would say I've told people one of the secrets to IDP. There's a couple. One, don't go overpaying for cornerbacks. You will find cornerbacks on the waiver wire a dime a dozen because it's largely matchups. It's largely who they're playing. And honestly, you want the crappy ones. Everyone thinks, I want Sertan. I want Sauce. No, you don't. No, you don't. You want the guy like KJ Britt that is constantly targeted because he can't guard anybody. And you know what happens. They throw the ball to whoever he's guarding 12 times in a game. And to your point, he's going to either get deflections, tackles, or some sort of action. I have Murphy. I think it's Murphy from the Buccaneers last year was another one that I targeted all over. Or St. Juice. Maybe it was St. Juice. It was one of them where he was constantly getting target. You heard his name all the time on the games. And yeah, he's getting targets. He's not a good defender. But I tell you what, for IDP purposes, Rocco. Sorry.
In PFF, they have this thing called ADOT, average depth of tackle. It's a fun stat to look at because you can tell who can actually hit that tackle 3 yards by line of scrimmage or who actually makes the tackle 7 yards down the field. You know, if you're that guy getting dragged down the field, a tackle's special, but a tackle is also the last play in every game. So there's a philosophy to it. Britt is a good tackler. He's not the best in coverage, but for right now, if you need a guy, he's owned in 10% of leagues, dude. 10% of leagues. You can pick him up somewhere. He's getting 89% snaps and then 93 last week. He had 6 tackles. Last week he had 9. He's going to get you them tackle points if you're for a tackle premium league. Those are 3 players right now you can get, especially during the bye weeks, and just plug them in. Those are my linebackers.
I love these are excellent calls, Steve. I am really digging these linebacker calls here, bud.
Thank you. And, if you guys want to go a little deeper, I'll throw one more bonus one in here. The Browns have a situation with Hicks. Hicks right now, Jordan Hicks is an older guy. Again, IDP, you got to look at these ages, these age cliffs. He's at that apex right now. You know, JOK is starting to be the alpha, the green dot guy. Hicks is hurt right now. Keep an eye on that because, again, IDP more than any other place, IDP you can actually get away with. You can get away with starting rotational players. There's a guy, Devin Bush. Some of us remember him back in the day, the Steelers. But Devin Bush stepped in, and people don't realize because the box scores are going to lie to you. Okay? Yeah, sure, he got X amount of snaps. Don't look at that. Look at what happened when Hicks wasn't in. He got 100% of the snaps the rest of the way, and he was the one that wore the green dot, not JOK. So if you're really, really punting this week, Devin Bush is a guy that you can get, and he's probably owned pretty much nowhere. You know what I mean?
It's got to be less than 5% on Devin Bush. I just saw him dropped like 2 weeks ago in every league. People draft him because of the name, not realizing that he was, because I saw him getting drafted, and I'm like, you guys realize he's a backup, right? This is not the guy that got drafted for Pittsburgh as a supposed starter. Right. And he got dropped everywhere, and I went and looked because I don't remember which sleeper league he was in, but he was only rostered in, I want to say like 5 to 7%, Steve.
Yeah, so that's what he's at right now. He's about like 8-9% of leagues. So yeah, you can get these guys dirt cheap. And again, with IDP, it's situational. I didn't mention anybody sexy. I didn't talk about the Roquan Smiths or this one or that one. It's all these names out of nowhere just coming in, whether they're young. And you know what's great about IDP, Rich? Diversity. Old, new, young, big, fat, skinny, tall, green, white, black. They're all over the place. They all come from different places.
It's the scheme.
It's all about the role.
I would say it's all about the scheme and the role. Like people,
and you know what else
people overcomplicate IDP, right?
They do.
Like I mean, in all seriousness, for me and my opinion, it is more based on understanding the type of defense they run and the roles that excel in those defenses, right? Like it's easy to be like, I want the middle linebacker. Okay, well, if you run a 3-4 defense, you have 2 middle linebackers. So which is the middle linebacker you want to target, right? You know, you may not want both middle linebackers, you know. Granted, yeah, it's easier if you find more of a 4-3, but everybody's running some sort of variation off a 3-4, whether it's a 2 high or whatever. You know, I don't want to get too much in the weeds here, but the point being is the role, and this is where I argue it pays to learn and know coaches. Yes. And it pays to learn and know coaches and tendencies, right? So you've just hit the nail on the head on these positions and these roles. And Steve, this is excellent work, man. I mean, I'm not trying to blow smoke at you on your podcast here, but this is excellent work in an area that I can understand why you get the views you get. This is excellent work done in an area that is not talked about. This is the type of stuff people talk about for running backs, people talk about for receivers and tight ends. You do not see people talking about this type of content on the IDP side. It's much more larger, broader, vague type of scale.
And, you know, and then I hate lazy content too. Oh, this guy's a beast. This guy's a stud. What the hell does that even mean? A beast, a stud? You know, let me get the content. But yeah, a lot of people aren't doing this. And you know the age cliffs with offense. I would argue on defense, we want them a couple years a little bit older. You want guys that know where the out.
You're right. I learned that before air. I learned that because I've made that mistake. In fact, I want to give you a prop here. Go read Steve's article on the age cliffs. Like, seriously, as silly as it sounds, it will give you an edge that I don't think people realize that's an easy edge. We go on the sleeper, pull up any player, it gives you their age. So
yeah, if you Google IDP age cliffs, I think I'm the only one out there that has it. You can literally pull up this article, and I update it every year. And I'm going to send it to you, Rich, when we're done. It's age, peak, and values. And appreciate the shout out. But yeah, you can really look at this. And it kind of breaks down. I don't know how you are, but I love doing player profiles because it's kind of neat because you get to see how the player runs, how it works, how the position groups are. But I have all the apex areas, especially if you guys are in dynasty leagues, which is kind of where we spend our time. But yeah, that's where this article comes from. It comes from the age cliffs and what have you. Rich, I got one more category. In full disclosure, I don't really care for defensive backs. It's probably going to be a lecture. The audience knows they're used to hearing me at least lecture one time like a professor. Do you have anything to share, add, anything you want to throw in on the offensive side of the house before I get into that lecture?
So tight end is a mess, okay? Don't overstress tight end, all right? I am seeing so many questions with people carrying 3 tight ends and they're carrying – don't know what I should do with Andrews. All right, so a little quick snippet on Andrews, Likely, and Kohler. They're all playing. We are going to see more tight ends by committee. And look, we all were kind of like, man, we're going to see more 12 personnel. Look at all these 2 tight end sets. Look at all these tight ends that these teams are getting. No, we had it wrong. We're seeing committees. We're seeing tight end committees. And it makes a lot of sense if you really think about it from a football standpoint, okay? You want to create mismatches the way the subbing is. So you got someone like an Isaiah Likely that you can line up out wide, or even Andrews, line up out wide that can create a mismatch athletically, but can also offer a blocking tight end that now you can run with. What defense are you sending out there? Are you putting nickel out there with 5 defensive backs to cover Likely in coverage? Or are you going to trust that the linebacker can hang with them because you're worried they're going to run the ball? So these teams are doing these things, and so tight end by committee is going to be a thing. So before you start panicking, ride it. You're going to have to ride the ebb and flow. If you think you're going to outsmart the system and stream based on matchup every week, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. You're going to fail. You're better off taking one, letting them ride. If you can get your Laportas, look, Tucker Kraft right now, nobody's just like we're talking about these linebackers. He's still only like 30% owned. Get him on your roster. He's the number one. Look, you're not going to get the 9 targets of last 2 weeks ago, but 3 to 5 targets a week. He is the starting tight end. He's above Luke Musgrave at this point. Go get yourselves a Tucker Kraft, but quit racking your brains trying to outsmart the system on tight end. That's my soapbox.
Gotcha. That makes sense. I guess, strategy with tight end. Well, 2 things. I guess 2 talking points I'd say. Either, you get It used to be years either you get the Kelsey type or you punt it. This year, I want to, just looking at it objectively, it's probably deeper than it's ever been, right? Because you got all these different guys. You got the Laportas, the McBrides, and this one, and now. I mean, you can go 6, 7, 8 deep and still feel okay. I don't know. What's your take on that?
No, I think you're spot on. Let's talk about the guys drafted right now. 2 of the tight ends that you are probably the most comfortable or confident starting: Brock Bowers and Jake Ferguson. Okay.
Yep.
I don't think anybody would disagree with that. Where were they drafted? They were tight ends 8, 9, 7, 8, 9, 10 off the board. They were the tight ends that were going in the rounds 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay. So to your point, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Steve. We're mad because it is deeper, but we're not seeing the high-end performances. Like 2 weeks ago when I checked scoring, check this out. The point difference per game basis from tight end 12 to tight end 19, 0.8.
Oh, jeez. Yeah,
it's less than 1 point. It's less than 1 point being a tight end 1 or a bottom tier tight end 2. Less than a point. So, I mean, now that's going to vary week to week. Don't get me wrong. And that, now I think it's 1.8 or 1.4. But even still, at 1.4, I mean, Steve, we've been playing this long enough. A 10-yard reception is not that big of a deal. No. That is, in a PPR, that's 2 points. In a standard league, that's 1 point. In a half-point PPR, that's 1.5 points. I mean, we are talking minor differences here at that position. I think you hit the nail on the head.
Heck yeah. Speaking of hitting the nail on the head, I hate defensive backs. I like to hit them all in the head. That position is the most punted to me. I'd rather have, I don't know how many tight ends you have in your roster. You see these guys with poorly managed rosters, they have like 4 or 5 tight ends. What are you doing? You don't need that many tight ends. Same with defensive backs. I will punt those things, and I don't care how big your league is. You can stream the position. You can stream it. Here's why. One, it's probably the most volatile, if not arguably, forget about it, is each year. If you look at each year, it's erratic. Each year, the top defensive back, with the exception of a Derwin James or maybe a Budda Baker a couple years ago, they don't repeat. It's always somebody new. 2, the position, it's defense. It's reactionary. It's not proactive. It's reactive. You still got to have a quarterback target you and give you the points, like you said earlier.
Or a running back that can get to the second level. You've got to have one of those 2 things, right?
And in the third point, a lot of teams, when me and you started playing, it was 4-3s, 3-4s. You get the inside linebacker, you get the strong safety. It's different now. The sub packages used to be nickels and dimes. A lot of teams roll out with 4-2-5s now or 3-3-5 packages now, right? You are seeing the fifth, and this is kind of where my analysis is going to go. You're seeing that third cornerback, which is usually the third scrub. You're seeing him as the third linebacker. He's getting a lot of the garbage points. You're seeing that strong safety come over the middle. He's getting those box points. So you're seeing defenses change because of the way the NFL is nowadays. You're seeing a lot of offense. And again, if each team's playing 5 defensive backs each week, there's a hell of a lot of options you can be streaming, as opposed to, we're seeing a lot of 4-2-5s, 3-5. Same thing with defensive linemen, Rich. I didn't mention it earlier. Yeah, you have your elite Nick Bosa types, right? You have your elite Will Anderson types, but for the most part, your DL 30, you can stream it. You can stream DL 30 to 50. So that's why I say you don't worry about that. Don't worry about DB. Don't worry about DL 30. Now, linebacker, you don't got one of them, you're kind of screwed. You got to find those guys, those Devin Bushes when they hit. But any one of these guys right now I'm going to mention 3. They're all pretty much owned nowhere. And you can get them.
Can I guess? I was going to say, because I don't know if you're going with this, but something I have noticed early on this year and found myself doing, I am grabbing a lot of nickelbacks, man.
Yeah.
When you go to the depth chart and you see NB next to their name, I have been finding there's a lot of overlap with the points in those positions and nobody rostering them.
So my first guy is a nickelback, my friend, and he's only owned in 8% of leagues.
I'm ready.
So he's a rookie, and what's great about rookies is they get peppered.
I love me some rookie DBs.
Right. As a dynasty strategy, I don't shy away from drafting rookies. Like even Sauce Garner, what do? They pepper these guys till they realize they're good, and then they get the hell away from them. So, like as a strategy, I will draft a young rookie, and once they collect points by week 5 or 6, I will trade them. You know what I mean? So, so you can totally do that. This guy here was somebody I watched in college. He profiled well. He was always one of those rookies. If you're in a deep enough league, like I run a 32 team league. After the 3rd round, who the hell is paying attention? Well, I am. There's guys like Tyke Smith is his name with the Cardinals. People don't know this guy. That's why he's only owned in 8% of leagues. He's a nickelback, but you know what's special about this nickelback?
He rushes the quarterback.
He what? Yeah, and he plays in the box. He gets box snaps too. You don't see too many corners in the box. So Smith hits all my metrics. He's on the field all the time. He got 99% of snaps in week 5. So what does that mean? He's going to get significant volume. He played 86 defensive snaps. That's a huge jump if you're looking at the stock market here from his 57 snaps way back in week 2. So the coaching staff trusts him. He had 11 tackles and a forced fumble. Sign me up for that, especially in the tackle premium league, okay? The forced fumble that he had was the first major play for that team, so it kind of sparked up the team. So he's kind of a rookie, but he's kind of like a leader on the field. Just thinking ahead, and I'm not a betting guy per se, but he's got the Saints next week, and you know what they have there at quarterback, right? Derek Carr just got hurt, right?
Either Rattler or AOC. It's going to be either a rookie or a guy who's mostly a rookie.
Right. And he's favorite. And it's also, if you look at the numbers, the Saints are one of those ones that they favor the slot. So I'm actually rushing to waivers this week, and I'm picking up Tyke Smith. He's only owned in 8% of leagues, especially if you're in a deep enough setup. And there's a couple of leagues that you and I play in that he's probably just floating around out there. You know what I mean? So those are the players I look for. You know what I mean? So that's
those
like
are some gems, man. Those are some gems. Like that's the stuff I look for in my streaming article that'll be coming out tomorrow on the offensive side. Like same thing. I'm targeting snaps. I'm targeting coming off the bench and filling for an injury. Like this is some hot data here, Steve. Like sign me up, man.
It's just the way I play. Like I want to invest my premium draft capital on defensive backs, elite DLs. Everything else is kind of streamable. This next guy, he's owned in 20% of leagues. People are starting to wise up a bit. He plays for the Jets. When you look at the Jets are kind of built in their front 7, and then they have an elite corner on the one side, right? But what they don't have, they can get got in the secondary. So there's a player, and he was dropped in the Kings Classic. His name is Tony Adams, okay? He's generally startable each week. Now, he did have a couple poor games with 3 tackles, but he had a 12-tackle performance and 11-tackle performance. If I was to tell you there's a safety that 2 out of 4 weeks he had 10-plus tackles, I would sign up for that. So I picked him up last week. He got me 6 tackles in a pinch. And he's one of those guys that gets 100% of snaps. So that's what I look for at the position. I'm looking for consistency. I'm looking for volume. And I'm looking for a guy, and I'm sure you can relate to this, Rich. Give me the player that plays all 3 downs instead of the hot commodity that only comes in for 1 down. Like, I will beat you 3 times the 1 if the math is mathing. You know what I mean?
That's why I'm never a big fan of like the OAs of the world, right? Where, they're so athletic and so beastly, but they're not on the field enough where it eats. You're so hoping for that 1 or 2 sack performance with a couple of, deflections or pass knockdowns or something kind of fluky like that you can't count on each week, where I'd much rather have, 3.5 tackles, even if they're almost all assisted tackles. You know what I mean? At least it's something tangible I know I can count on. So I'm with you. Give me the 3 downs. Give me you got some good fire ones here. I've got a couple of dynasty leagues that I'm not so sure these guys are owned in that I'm rebuilding anyway. And so my focus has been on offense as I'm trying to gather some youthful pieces. I've been grabbing young defensive players as I can.
There you go.
I moved some bigger names for draft picks that now I regret because they're starting to really peak where I held on to JOK for the longest time, got tired of the injuries and the up and down. The dude really wanted him. I needed picks. I needed capital, whatever. But, like this Tyke Smith, this because he's the rookie, right? That's the rookie, one that I'm going to be rushing to my MFL leagues. I got 2 of them, and hopefully I beat my league mates. They don't hear this, and or they don't hear this till after Wednesday night, because I'll be sending it to them anyway. But yeah, that's the type of stuff that's gold, bro.
So you'll appreciate this last one I got. I wrote this in the waiver article 2 weeks ago. He was owned in 0% of leagues. Right now he's owned in 8% of leagues, so people are starting to catch on to this. He's a hybrid. He's one of them DB, LB types, and he got a sack his first start. He got a sack. So he's one of those ones that you like, that he blitzes off the nickel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The name is Isaiah Polo-Mayo. So Pola-Mao. He plays with the Raiders. Marcus Epps got hurt 2 weeks ago. So this is pretty much a free safety. This is a free player. Okay. Why I'm profiling him. It's hard to profile him because he was nothing special. His rookie profile year, he kind of rode bench. He kind of went back and forth. He was a special teamer. But when he took over for Marcus Epps, he got 100% of snaps, which is what I like. He produced 6 tackles. He's a blitzing specialist. He showcased his talents. He went off the edge on 3rd down. This is last week when he had that big pass deflection against Jerry Jeudy. Kind of put the nail in the coffin for the Browns. He's 6'4", 205, so you can play him. You can play him as a third. You play him as a third linebacker. Now, this one here, I bring this up, and I'll give it back to you. I don't play in a lot of salary cap leagues, but I was thinking about him. He's 25 years old. Compared to Epps, who's 29 years old, they're the same kind of player. They have the same kind of game. But Epps is on an expiring contract. Epps is also injured. Those that are aware of this guy and were able to scout him, this may be one of those players that you can kind of pick up now and stash in one of those salary cap kind of leagues. So, consider this guy. At the very least, if you're in a deep enough league, he's a free player. Isaiah Polo-Mayo.
Sign me up, Steve-O. Sign me up. Sign me up, man. Like I said, when we hang up, I'm so old, dude. I'm so used to phones.
When I get the flip phone out, we hang up.
Oh my God, dude. When I hang up. Well, like I was telling someone, we used to have a cord. Like, it was cool when we got a cordless phone, and they did not work all that well. Like, I remember going, can't hear you. Let me go get the other phone. So, but we're that old. Let me tell you.
I had a rotary phone. Phone upstairs. I'd call my girlfriends like By the time you'd get it to answer, you'd forget what you were gonna say.
My buddy lived at a home. It was a nice home. This was when I was in junior high school. So I mean, we're not talking, like ancient, right? I didn't realize this. I go to dial his phone. It wasn't rotary, but I'm hitting the buttons and it's going I was like, oh, holy crap! You still got to use the Pulse phone. I'm like, I kind of want to go get you a rotary phone just so I could do it, because this is what I had to do at my grandma's house. I mean, so.
Hey, I'll give you one more. I was watching Lethal Weapon. I was binge watching TV. Remember Lethal Weapon 1?
Yep.
It's so out of date right now. You have Mel Gibson with the mullet. He goes to his phone, which was in the trunk of his car. He opens up the trunk. You can see it in the movie. They have to wind it up. And he picks out this big phone. It's about the size of this cup. And he's on it talking with the thing. If you go back and watch the movie, I'm like, holy cow, I don't remember those phones. I remember the rotary, but I don't remember the ones that you go in the back of the thing and wind it up. Go ahead and check it out, man. If one thing they learned from this show is that we are old rich.
Yeah, right. Well, I always laugh when I see, because we were apart when the car phone kind of came around. Like, when you had that buddy's dad that had the car phone in the car, like my grandpa was national salesman, so he had the car phone. Like, that was a big deal. And then when my dad got this promotion, he got the car phone. We were all excited because Grandpa thought it was cool. Well, call Grandma, tell her we're on our way. That's just he always told her when he was on his way. and I didn't think much about it. I don't know his P&L,
Yeah.
his budget or whatever with the company he worked for. Then my dad gets one, as he gets promoted after we moved. Don't you dare. Do you know how much it costs to call someone on that phone? I have no idea. It's like $6 a minute. I don't know. So I will go back and watch that because I do like the Lethal Weapons. And I've been on this kick watching old movies anyway.
Me too.
Steve, so I'm with you.
I've been going back looking at the old 90s movies and just seeing how things have gone. I could talk to you another hour about that one. Hey, we're talking about we're old. You know who isn't old? I had a guy on my show,
Discord?
Aidan. Yeah, I had a guy on my show, Aidan, and he runs what's called the IDP Center. Really cool guy, really good interview I did. He got out of high school and he won a science project and he patented. He's an inventor. He's a 2-time inventor, way younger than us. And you know what he did? He created his own Discord. He created his own website called the IDP Center, which I'm on there. And I'll write, I write the stream of the week from time to time. Really good site. They have on this site, I'm just going to show the audience a taste because this is like one of our sponsors. They have a Discord. They also have articles. What I enjoy about this, Rich, he has over 450 managers. They give personal advice, right? But they also have a trade calculator on here. And I get so ticked off with trade calculators, especially IDP. And I don't know how you are, Rich. Like one trade calculator will say, well, TJ Watt is the equivalent in trade to Justin Jefferson. Then I go to another site and it'll be like, well, TJ Watt's the equivalent of Devin Singletary. Which is it? So this one here is Taylor. It's tailor fit, tailor made like a catcher's mitt for each individual site. So he's doing a lot of great work. Real smart guy. He runs this site. So for the audience, please check out the IDP Center. And last but not least, we've seen these guys at the expo. He's got a partnership with Smash Up Sports. And, to be honest, I'm not too familiar, but I got the cards like you. It's like Pokemon meets fantasy football. If your player scores, I got it actually in front of me. If your player scores, if your defense wins the game, your card is worth 75 more points. The other one I picked up, it's like, if your quarterback scores a touchdown, you get triple the points. Like, it's ridiculous. It's just another nuance to the game that we know and we play and we love. So, if anybody out there is interested, check out the IDP Center, check out the Smash Up Sports. I go over here a lot because they have free leagues, Rich, and they have money leagues. I play a lot of best balls because I'm at the point now, I'm miserable. I'm tired of all these. I'm tired of all these redrafts. I'm tired of all these things to start. I just said it and I forget it. It's easy.
Let me do the draft. Yeah. I just want to do it. I don't know. Like
when I was a kid, I used to read like a lot of comic books and whatnot. Like I go to my friend's house, you play with all his stuff, and you go home. It's easy cleanup. I don't have to clean up anything. If it's my room, you got to clean it up. So that's what it's like to me. It's like, hey, I just want to draft a league. Let me do a best ball and I'm done with it. But yeah, that's the IDP Center. They're actually off of Reddit. That's how I met them. They're on a Discord. And like I said, I go in there and I jam out. Basically, I go in there and I talk smack, to people half my age is pretty much what I do. And they kind of let me hang out. I guess we're the older statesmen at this point, which I don't know how you feel about that. That's a whole nother podcast for another day, I'm sure. But
hey. All I know is we go back to the newspaper days of hand scoring, sending in, mailing in lineups. Bob Harris, I don't know if people know this. He got his start out by basically having a fax line and a call-in line where he gave you the data, like the yardage, the touchdowns, and all that, so people could do the fantasy scoring. Like, we used to hand write this stuff, Steve. So to go to these websites that have all this automatic stuff and all these crazy nuances, like, dude, it was hard enough to keep track. We did 1 point for 50 yards, 3 points for 100. Because gosh darn it, when you're keeping track in a notebook, you don't want decimal places. Let me tell you.
That's why it's so neat to do this stuff now. Because I guess what Rich is describing a little bit, value-based drafting, and some of the strategies that we used to do back in the day. Now the ADP set and the projections are all right there. People just clicking buttons. If you can do both, if you can have the old science and the new science, you're going to be unstoppable in your leagues. And that's what we hope to aim. I'm not necessarily, we were talking about this off life too. I don't really necessarily care, sit, start, who you're playing. I just want you to know, like, I don't care about you teaching it. I want to teach you to fish instead of feeding you a fish, because that'll get you by this week. But do you know how to do these things? We're analysts for a reason.
I'm 100% with you. And I've had this discussion. I know I've upset people in our Discord. And I said, look, man, I'm all about bringing you to the lake. I'm all about helping your horse get to the lake. I'm all about letting you have a choice of fishing poles, showing you how to use the fishing poles, even telling you what my favorite fish are to catch and to cook dinner with. What I'm not okay with is doing all that and then you going, here's a couple of fish, make me dinner. Like we failed you then, because our goal is to teach you how to be better players. And if you're using us as a crutch, and I just need this answer, like the other one that always is a pet peeve of mine, just one more quick one. None of the questions are quick. So when you go another quick one, right now you've asked how many questions? Why should I focus 15, 20 minutes with you when there's another person that wants 10 to 15 minutes and another person that wants 5 minutes? When I give you all that stuff, if you read it and come back to me with, hey, I saw this in the article, I'm not sure I quite understand, or man, you had them next to each other, which I know means they're close. And I know you've said in the past, if you have shares of both, you'll play one and not the other. Okay, here's my situation. If you do stuff like that, one, you're going to be a better player because you're learning. And two, I'll be honest, if you want us to continue to have these podcasts and these articles, you need to tune in. You need to click. Like, I don't mean to be a beggy, nanny here, but you not reading the article doesn't benefit the site and doesn't benefit us to have me write the article. And so then once that stuff disappears, what's the point? And I'll be frank, spending an hour and a half answering questions like that instead of an hour and a half digging up who's 8% owned and playing 98% of the snaps, that is tangible information that is good for you to use. Me doing a start sick for 1 week helped you out for 1 week that honestly, we're probably splitting hairs anyway. And as much as everybody loves to make start sit everything for fantasy football, it's probably the least important, even though that sounds crazy, because I understand that's who scores the points. But if you build your roster properly, the start sits aren't a question. You play your best players and move on.
You can tell I can talk to Rich all day here, guys. Rich Maletto, everybody. Rich, final question for you. Tell the audience where they could find you, podcasts, stuff you're writing, any closing thoughts. The floor is yours, my friend.
One, thank you, Steve. Steve's right. Steve and I, it's a shame we live so far away, because if we didn't, I'd be calling him up and take the dog over there, and we're going to go drink some bourbon and talk football and kick our feet up and have a grand old time in the basement, let me tell you. But you can find my content over at fantasyguru.com. We do have a Discord. There's tons of membership options, okay? If you want, I cover some NASCAR too, but if you want just football, we got it. You want just baseball, we got it. Head over to fantasyguru.com. Check the subscribe button. Email support@fantasyguru.com. They'll set you up with the best package for you. Thank you so much, Steve. I honestly can't thank you enough, man.
Yeah, Rich, you're amazing. I tell the audience all the time, you guys keep listening. We'll keep making these. Like me and Rich said, feed a man a fish. Give him for a day, right? Teach a man to fish, you'll feed him forever. So that's all I got, guys. Thanks for coming on, Rich. And until next week, talk hard.